Hi everyone, and welcome to this Thursday afternoon hangout. Hope the sun is shining where you are. My name is Elene Marsden, and this hangout today is part 3 in an email marketing series where we first of all talked about the importance of having a database to manage all your contacts and plan strategies for keeping in touch. Then last week we looked at some of the email service providers out there, and we had a look at some of the features, the things to look out for, the reporting, all the other aspects of email marketing. And as promised, today what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the importance of subject lines. And I've got a presentation for you. And then right at the very end of that, I've got a guest here with me, Sam Brooks, and she's actually going to share with us one copywriting tip, but more about that later. So let me just go straight over now to the presentation. So just bear with me one moment while I share my screen. Okay, now let's just take a little look. Right, so let's get started with this presentation. So first of all, we're going to be looking at subject lines. And let me tell you, subject lines do make a difference to your open rates. So really what you've got to try and do is make them relevant to the content, because you don't want to mislead anybody and, you know, say just come over and open this, but by the way it's a different subject altogether and a different topic. So make sure they're relevant. So that's one thing to do. And they're critical, really. Catchy, short, informative subject lines are going to spread your message. Now it is true that only between 20 and 40% of emails get opened. Industry standard open rate is about 20%. If you get 40%, that's fantastic. But the thing is, most subject lines are read. People will scan the subject line, and that's the decider as to whether people are going to click and open. So I haven't tested this myself, but I got this little snippet from GetResponse, an email service provider, and they're saying that subject lines with over 70 characters generate more click-throughs. Under 60 characters will get more opens. Now I don't know for sure if that's true, so what I would recommend is wherever possible you test and measure, and in one group of emails you do one thing, test it against another group, a batch of emails. So split test those messages you send if you're going to find out whether that's working for your audience, but worth considering. So I'm going to now go on to 6 top tips for getting great open rates. And the first thing I'd like to say is that if you're sending e-shots out to people, you've really got to have some kind of relationship. I was talking to somebody earlier today and they were saying that they were just going to collect emails from websites. Well, I don't think that's a good idea if you send e-shots to people that you've never met or had no interaction with before. So for me, I get a lot of my new email addresses from people I meet out networking, or people who fill out forms on my website. So it's about having some kind of relationship, and that way you're going to get a much higher open rate. The other thing is people will want to know, well, what's in it for me? If I open this, what's it going to do for me? What benefit are you offering? And does your subject line reflect this? And I tell you what's very popular: 7 ways to, 6 or 7 steps to, and even the heading on this slide. That would be potentially a good subject line. 6 top tips for getting great open rates. You'll have to remember that. So that's, you know, it's got to be of benefit to get them to open. The other thing is, actually thinking about using these words. You're not alone, I also think, or, you know, we don't like Mondays, you're not alone. And this often leads to higher open rates, you know, in many different markets, because it relates to this universal feeling of belonging. You're like me, I'm like you. So, you know, if you can kind of incorporate that, you know, feeling of belonging into the subject line, that's going to work too. Tip number 4, watch this video. And actually, that video by Pharrell Williams is fantastic, the happy video. But people do love watching videos, and particularly when you use that strong word, this video, and you use a command like watch. So that's really nice, short, very, very short subject line. But I would definitely recommend, you know, if you do use video marketing in your business, that you use that, you try that out as a subject line. Tip number 5, you're gonna love this. Assuming liking, and it uses the word this again. And you know, you can use those ... It kind of, it's a bit mysterious. You're going to love this. Well, what is it that you think that I'm going to love? Do you know me that well? So it's very engaging. So that's another subject line tip. And then the last one, asking the question, have you seen this? And, you know, people are more likely to want to know, well, what is it? What, you know, I'm curious. Let's just take a look and see what you're talking about. Looks like other people have seen something and I don't want to miss out. So there's 6 tips for great subject lines, and I definitely recommend you try those out when you send your next e-shots to your customers and prospects. So let's have a quick summary of this. So emails, the subject lines, they're going to be personal. You want to be caring about the people you're writing to, share something of value that's going to help people, and pretend like you're writing to a friend. Now, what I tend to do before I write my email body, I'll open up a Word document, and I usually write to somebody called John. Hi, John. And then I just write the email as if I'm writing to this one person that I've got in my mind's eye, and, you know, very much using the active voice. And that works very well for me. It gets me into the mindset, if you like, of writing. So that's the summary. And the next couple of slides are going to be just general tips about, you know, your emails and the content. Now, you might not have come across this term, CTA, or call to action. Call to action buttons are very, very important. There's a company called HubSpot, and I was just looking through my files, and they had sent me a 27 slide presentation on all different call to action buttons and different ones you can use and different colors and different words. And there's an art to this in its own right, but certainly they need to be strong and engaging, and they need to be obvious. Grab this ebook, download this template, get this coupon. It's pretty clear what you need to do. And the other things that I would recommend when you are using call to action buttons, not that big, but I would often want to advise you to have them above the fold and below the fold. And what I mean by that, everything you can see on the screen, there must be one call to action at the top. If your email happens to be quite long, at the bottom of that email, have another. The same, similar, exactly the same call to action button. So you're repeating the command a couple of times in that email. So there we are, call to action buttons, very, very important. People need to know what to do after they've read your email. The other thing to bear in mind is to think, well, are my emails mobile friendly? Have you checked to see what they look like when they're viewed on an iPhone or an Android? They're going to look slightly different. Some are going to be better, displayed better on certain phones than others. But one tip for you is to have shorter content and the calls to action up earlier. in the message. So if a lot of people do, that people are reading your messages on their mobile devices, then it might be worth considering keeping your e-shots, your messages, shorter. So let's just take a look now. The other thing is to try and be consistent. If you can send regular messages like clockwork, maybe once a week, once a month, or if it's twice or once every 2 months, but as long as it's sort of regular, people will expect then for your emails to come in. Very similar to these Hangouts. I mean, I'm running these Hangouts now every Thursday at 4 o'clock, so you know that that's what's going to happen, and it's consistent and it's regular. People then will get to know that that's what's happening. Once a week an email is going to drop into their inbox, say on a Wednesday. Now the next thing, this is quite hard to do, but it's critiquing your own email, almost as if it's come from someone else, and ask yourself these questions. Well, would I open that email? And if I opened it, would I spend more than 2 seconds reading it? And if I spent more than 2 seconds on it, would I know what to do next? And that's that call to action. So you need to be, be quite critical with yourself, or even get somebody else to read it for you and get their views, particularly if it's a very important message and you want results from it. Get somebody else to take a look at it. And remember, 50-50 rule. Now, some people might argue it was more like a 70-30 rule, but certainly a lot of time should be spent on the subject line and the body, and then perhaps less on the design. The design hopefully is going to be already created and working in the background, has got a consistency about it, but the time spent when you're crafting your emails is really time spent on the subject lines, particularly because remember at the beginning of this presentation, lots of people read the subject lines but they don't go to open, and you want to try and get them to open your messages. So the final slide for successful email marketing, this is summing up all 3 of these slides in a way. First of all, segment your database. You need to be able to divide it up so that you're writing to specific groups. You want to be able to build up your database, an opt-in database. So you might want forms on your website, sign-up forms on your Facebook page, all over your social media channels, and send out timely and relevant messages with those call to action buttons. And the other thing is, if you have got a call to action button, make it time sensitive, like click here by the end of, click here to apply by the end of the day or by the end of the week or within the next 48 hours, because certainly people do need encouragement. They're very unlikely to go back to your email, in a week's time, so it's all got to be now and time sensitive. That's my recommendation. So that's the presentation finished. I am now going to head back to, hopefully you can all see me now, and I'm going to introduce you to my guest who's come on the Hangout with me today, and her name is Sam Brooks, and she's got a company called Suffolk Social Media, and her specialism is copywriting. So I'm sure she's going to have one tip for us today. So Sam, can I introduce you? There you go, you've got the camera. What's your tip for us today then?
Hi Elaine, thanks very much for having me. My tip is about getting your keywords in the right place. So don't have too many keywords. Maybe insert the keyword twice in the first paragraph. So for example, for me, my keywords would be social media and either Ipswich or Suffolk or both. And then intersperse it throughout the document. Yeah. So the keywords another 3 or 4 times throughout the document, and then twice in the last paragraph and also in the call to action at the bottom of the document, whether that's an email or web content or blog content.
Excellent. Thank you.
Help?
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I think I didn't mention keywords, but you know, you're so right. They're important, and to have them in the right position. So I appreciate your input. Thanks for joining me today. I'm sure we'll see you again on another Hangout. I want to keep all these Hangouts short and sweet because I want you to have some value you can take away. And you know, we've got a fantastic program coming up over the next few weeks. Next week, I've got John Miller, and he's coming from the Green Chair, and he's going to talk about critical thinking. And he's a great speaker, so I do hope you'll come and join me again next week. So I'm going to say thank you very, very much for joining me, and thanks a lot again to Sam for your tip. Absolutely brilliant. So till next time then, bye for now.
Thanks.